The second is that if it were to become a problem, you would have plenty of time through the day to deal with the problem. If it was anticipated at some stage that these people are going to sit it out, they're going to stay there the whole night, we're not going to resolve the problem, you can send your tactical forces in to effect the high-risk tactical arrests if you think that that risk is outweighed by the humanitarian risk of forcing people to stay on the mountain another night.
It's a possibility what you're saying, but I think we must just understand that the points that you're raising now were raised when the encirclement plan was discussed to consider whether the larger group, whether it was still feasible for a larger group. It wasn't in the context of looking at the smaller group.
That's in fact where I wanted to end up, because it seems to me that all of the concerns that you're raising are really concerns which explain very reasonably why you couldn't run encirclement with a larger group.
That's correct.
But they don't explain why you couldn't run encirclement at first light.
That's correct.
Now, as the chairperson has put to you earlier, encirclement couldn't have been run at first light on Thursday morning, or it could have, but it wasn't desirable to run it on first light on Thursday morning because Mr. Matunjwa had been sent away essentially to try to resolve the problem consensually, and while that was a realistic, albeit not a very likely possibility, SAPS wanted to explore it or let it run its course.
That's correct.
And by the time that possibility turned out not to be one that would be realized, it was too late to run encirclement on the Thursday.
That's correct.
But that still begs the question of why it wasn't possible to wait until Friday to move to the tactical phase with the encirclement plan. And that's the topic to which I'd like to turn now. And as a prelude to that topic, I'd like to set out what I understand the important sequence of events in this regard to be on the 16th. And if we can start with the 6 o'clock JOCCOM, where, and what I'm going to, Colonel, what I will do is I will set out what I see to be the important sequences in that process. Just listen to me first time out. I'll give you an opportunity to respond to each one of them, to say either you've got that step wrong, it wasn't like that, or there's another step that's missing that you should have mentioned. The first step that I see as important is that 6 o'clock JOCCOM meeting where, on the SAPS version as it stands, General Annandale announced the abandonment of the encirclement plan and the adoption of a new Phase 3. At the same JOCCOM meeting, a decision was taken to move to Phase 2. Call that 2 steps.
If I can maybe just input something there. It must be remembered that the initial encirclement plan as such, the strategy thereof, was never understood by the greater group of commanders. They would have only seen the word encirclement, understanding that that would have been our tactical option. As I say, there was never a full briefing given to them on that. So I'm just trying to relate to General Annandale abandoning the encirclement plan. So for him speaking to the commanders, that their opinion has been that the tactical option is going to be encirclement should we move there. It's likely that their opinion again is going to be that we're encircling the larger group, not understanding that it was an initial plan drafted for a Tuesday morning, seen for a Wednesday morning, evaluated during the day on the Wednesday for a larger group, seen it's not going to be feasible, and thus carried over that way, because the understanding of the commanders that were in the JOCCOM, having the plan not explained to them, but only reading it and having me say that the tactical option would be encirclement and going on, there could be of the opinion that the encirclement meant the larger group.
But they would have known the broad outlines of the encirclement plan from that Google Earth slide that was part of the presentations that had been shown previously. They may not have realized that it was designed for a small group early in the morning, but the broad outline with the processing zone and...
Yeah, the photo would have been there. The photo was never explained to them, though. As I said, it was an iconic photo just to show the operational overview, and I would click on the Google Earth icon. So if they made their own deductions by looking at the photo, I wouldn't know. But they were never explained in specific at all, the envisioned concept for the encirclement. They only knew it was part of the strategy.
Is that correct? The operational strategy was explained to them, wasn't it? According to paragraph 7.25, page 50, you gave a briefing to this, what you described as the first briefing to the structured JOCO, which included the different police commanders. It was on Tuesday at about 1400. The commanders were called back from the sector patrols to hear the operational strategy based on phases 1 to 6. And then if one goes a few pages earlier, paragraph 7.21.6.2, page 46, you explain what the operational strategy for a phase 3 deployment was at that stage. Based on the initial operational concept, i.e. the plan to encircle the copy, and then you enlarge on that in 7.21.6.3. So that was the operational strategy which you've explained. And according to what you say here in paragraph 7.25, that was conveyed to the commanders at 1400 hours on Tuesday afternoon. Is that right?
No,
or am I missing something?
No. This is what my envisioned when we're talking about 72161 or 7216, speaking of the phase 3, that was my how I had reasoned out the strategy. But the briefing of that, and I've actually mentioned it elsewhere in my statement, I'm not sure of the paragraph now, is where I actually say it was carried over to them basically in the coordinating instruction slide where it just had the names in principle. But I specifically concentrated on the phase 1 to go into the dialogue.
Paragraph 7.27 on page 51, that you gave a full presentation in respect to phase 1, but you also gave, also referred to the other 5 phases in lesser detail, which implies that there was a certain degree of explanation, at least a sentence or two, and all we need is a sentence or two to get what you have in 7.21.6.3. Isn't that right? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, well, memory is very vague from that time, as I mentioned yesterday as well, Chairperson. But
I'm relying on what you say.
Yes, I understand that, and I'm just thinking about.
Still trying to understand your evidence.
If to what degree? But to the best of my knowledge, I would have just referred to them as in this is the strategy, and you know, if you talk to it, it's we're going to do this. It'll be a show of force. It will go to the tactical option, which at this stage is an encirclement option on a specific order, which will be given. Moving on to the targeted arrests, and then to coordinate search strategy. But
you see, the targeted arrests are 4 and 5, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you really explain to them the encirclement, once they get to 4 and 5, they'll understand that 3 must have included arrests because you've got arrests for 4 and 5. Is that so?
Well, ultimately, if there was going to be a tactical option...
No, but you explain. You explain we're going to do 3.
Yes.
Shortly.
Yes.
You then say we're moving on to 4 and 5. 4 and 5 presuppose arrests.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, they'll understand that 3 must include arrests.
Yes.
Encirclement,
yes.
and then arrests.
Yes.
That at least they know.
Yes.
Oh.
And and as I say, much of that comes from the strategy of the early morning. But to how much of that I actually discussed with them, I would be using deductive reasoning if I had to go there. I can't really remember. But I'm sure there must have been some of the statements of the members from those days that will be able to clear that up.
Colonel, getting back to those sequences, you had the 6 a.m. meeting where Major General Annandale indicates that it's no longer encirclement, it's disperse and disarm. At the same meeting, a decision is taken to move to phase 2.
Yes.
And just to clarify, phase 2 is what we could call a holding phase. Phase 3 is a tactical phase.
Phase 2 was a show of force to dissuade any aggressive action, and not just towards the police, but for that matter to show the strong arm of the police is present and to dissuade any violent or destructive action from this part of the strikers. And then, of course, that's actually the first reason for the phase 2. The second reason is a pre-placement for a possible move to a stage 3, a phase 3.
Okay. But no decision was taken to implement phase 3 at the morning JOCCOM meeting because in the absence of a material escalation in the threat, there was no need to move from phase 2 to phase 3.
At that time, obviously speaking now to the JOCCOM meeting, there was no need yet to move, because remember the JOCCOM's happening anyway before 9 o'clock in the morning. So deciding on a phase 2 at that time, we're still uncertain as to what will happen at 9 o'clock. Although information is trickling in that people are arriving at the Kopi with weapons, there's still a hope that something is going to come of it. But there was no pertinent decision taken there. I think there was an anticipation that possibly that day we could go to a tactical option, but there was no decision taken at that time that the one was going to be implemented.
But certainly the version that's been put before this commission in Exhibit L and through the evidence of Major General Annandale is that the key factor that ultimately determined the move to the tactical phase was the escalation in the threat.
I believe so as well, yes.
Did you understand at the morning JOCCOM that in the absence of an escalation of the threat, there would be no move to phase 3?
I understood it to be that way, yes.
Proceeding with the sequence of events as I understand it, by mid-morning it was clear that Mr. Matunjwa was not going to be able to get the mine workers to leave the Kopi.
Well, they hadn't as of yet, but I wasn't out there to experience all that was going on, but I understood that it wasn't happening, yes.
Let me not say by mid-morning.
He only saw them after 12 o'clock.
Mid-morning was wrong. By 1 o'clock, by the time that Mr. Matunjwa left the Kopi shortly after 1, SAPS were of the view that he wasn't going to be able to get the mine workers to leave the Kopi.
I wasn't even aware at that stage that he was speaking to the mine workers. Back at the JOC, I don't know why, but I was not aware that he was out there and addressing the mine workers at that time.
But again, setting out the sequences in the SAPS case as we understand it, sometime prior to 1:30, it was reported to SAPS, or it reached the JOC, that there had been an escalation of the threat.
Yes.
And sometime prior to 1:30, as a result of this escalation of the threat, the decision to move to phase 3 was taken.
Well, I can assume so, because, as I say, I was told probably just before 1:30, come in, take your seat. We're going to now be moving to the tactical option.
And if there hadn't been a material escalation in the threat, there wouldn't have been a move to the tactical option.
Well, you're asking for my opinion, because obviously I can't speak on behalf of the SAPS. I think these decisions are taken above my level. But I was of the opinion, again, that if the strikers were going to return to dialogue, continue negotiating with their laying down of their weapons, etc., that would still be the order of the day.
But again, on the SAPS case, there had been this escalation in the threat. The decision was taken to move to phase 3 sometime before 1:30 and communicated at the 1:30 JOCCOM.
Yes.
And then phase 3 was implemented sometime after 3:30.
Yes.
Now, in terms of that sequence, have I left anything out critically? Does that describe how we got to phase 3 on the Thursday?
I have a strange feeling you're going to inform me, but as I say, if I speak blatantly to memory now,
I hate to be so predictable, Colonel, but I am going to inform you what I see as a crucial step that isn't part of the SABC case, but we see as being crucial. And that's the press conference of the Provincial Commissioner at 9:30, which we see as being a very important event on the day. And can we just play AAA 13, which is a clip from that press conference?
Counted 18 bodies outside the platinum mine at Marikana. It came after police had apparently urged the strikers to put down the weapons they were carrying. Caroline Hawley reports.
Trouble at the mine had been brewing for days. Weapons drawn and already used in a dispute over wages. We work hard, this miner said, but we can't afford to send our kids to school. All we want is money. We're not fighting anybody. Thousands of South Africans who work in the mine had downed tools, and there had been fighting between rival unions. 10 people, among them police and miners, already dead. The police determined today to break up the protest.
We will ask them to leave. But then I don't want to explain to you if they don't, what then. What I told you is today we are ending this matter.
So that's what the Provincial Commissioner had told the world at 9:30. And in fact, she went a little bit further. There is another clip which needs to be played into the record, which is a press conference that she gave to ENCA, an interview that she gave to ENCA straight after that press conference. That's J 92. While we're waiting for J 92 to be found, would you agree that unless the miners left the Kopi consensually, it wouldn't be possible to end the matter today without moving from phase 2 to phase 3?
I agree, yes.
So if what the Provincial Commissioner had said at 9:30 was going to be implemented, absent a consensual departure from the Kopi by the miners, there would have to have been an implementation of phase 3 that day.
From what she has said, I understand it that way, yes.
Can we now play J 92, which is an interview that she gave shortly after 9:30?
Commissioner, just give us a brief plan of what is planned to happen here today.
The plan is that we intend to ensure that today we end this strike, but we intend to make sure that we end it in the best way that we can, in an amicable solution.
Why is what they're doing there an illegal gathering in terms of the Gatherings Act? What is illegal about what they are doing there?
It's illegal because they don't have any authority in terms of that very same act you are saying, to gather in that fashion in a public space. I'm not sure about the whys, because that can be maybe responded to by either the mine management or the two unions that are seemingly those people are affiliates of.
How would you respond, finally, Commissioner, to criticism that the police have taken too long to actually disperse what is actually happening out there?
It has not been too long. We moved in here after the march on Friday, and on Monday we made a decision that we go and disarm those people and disperse them, and that's what we did. Unfortunately and sadly, through that process, that's when we lost our 2 cops, as well as 3 members from their side. It is then that we came back and decided to make sure that we plan right, but also we give them an opportunity to come and hand over their weapons. And now it's time that if they can't succumb to our request, we will have to act.
If they resist?
If they resist, like I said, today is a day that we intend to end the violence.
So, Colonel, the Provincial Commissioner was very clear at 9:30 that things were going to be ended today, consensually or non-consensually.
I hear that, Jess.
Now, one of the things that always struck us is
At what stage did you learn, if you ever did learn, in the course of that day, that the Provincial Commissioner had made that announcement?
Chairperson, even up until the special JOCOM, I was not aware of that media briefing that had taken place. And I was not aware that, in this case, if there was a pre-decided decision, was made either. I was of the opinion that a phase 3 was always on the cards, due to the fact that my own opinion was, again, that the violence would possibly get worse because all avenues of dialogue had been exhausted, and there was possibly no other way for the strikers to go other than what had happened at the Impala Platinum Mine. So, but that there was a pertinent decision made, I was not aware of that.
General Mpembe and General Annandale were present at the press conference. They both testified to that effect.
Yes.
Did they not report to you?
No.
Or that decision had already been announced to the world at 9:30?
No, they didn't, Chairperson. And why I can say with certainty is because if I was told phase 3 is a definite going ahead and it's in so many hours' time, I would have spent quite a bit of time in actually looking at detail and reassessing the situation, asking for aerial photographs. As I say, when you've got the time, you use it. And when you don't have the time, you make the best of this little time you have. So I wasn't aware, no.
Colonel, you spoke of I forget the exact phrase that you used, but of a decision having been taken already was the meaning that you were conveying, and that you weren't aware of that at the time.
Well, listening to the video material, I think it's objective to say that they said, the Provincial Commissioner mentioned that if they don't leave on their own today, as you put it earlier, that the police would need to take steps to ensure that it came to an end.
Well, we have statements from the National Commissioner and the Provincial Commissioner which make clear that the night before, the Provincial Commissioner had informed the National Commissioner that if SAPS could not persuade the strikers to lay down their weapons and leave the Kopi by negotiations, she would issue an instruction for the strikers to be dispersed. None of that was conveyed to you?
No.
You see, what's come to our attention more recently is that the version described in the statements of the National Commissioner and the Provincial Commissioner, in fact, it goes a little bit further than that version. It wasn't just a conversation between the Provincial Commissioner and the National Commissioner. There was a formal, minuted, extraordinary session of the National Management Forum of SAPS on Wednesday night, attended by the National Commissioner, all Provincial Commissioners, Deputy National Commissioners, Divisional Commissioners, and there is a minuted item which we would hand in as J 177. And it's in file 4 now, page 204. I wonder if we...
So how do I describe it in the minutes?
The National Management Forum of the SAPS. and this is an extract from the minutes. It says draft, but we're assured by SAPS that this is in fact the actual minute, or a correct minute. And it says, agenda item 7, extraordinary session, attendance, National Commissioner or Provincial Commissioners, Divisional Commissioner Operational Services, Deputy National Commissioner Operational Services, and Acting Divisional Commissioner Crime Intelligence. The National Commissioner opened the meeting and requested the Provincial Commissioner Northwest, Lieutenant General Mbombo, to brief the attendees on issues of the labour unrest in Lonman Mine in Marikana, Northwest. After deliberations, the meeting endorsed the proposal to disarm the protesting masses and further indicated that additional resources must be made available upon needs identification by the Provincial Commissioner Northwest. So it seems that the statement that the Provincial Commissioner made to the world at 9:30 flowed from a decision taken at a meeting of the highest management structure of the SAPS. Were you aware of any of this?
No.
When you reach a suitable stage, we have to stop, as you know.
Mr. Chairperson, I have quite a long way to go, so I think at this point we would do as well to stop now.
The Commission is now going to adjourn until the 14th of October. We're taking the recess now. A lot of work to be done during the recess, reading and consideration of material. But we're adjourning until the 14th of October at 9:30. We have already spoken, the three of us, the three commissioners, have spoken to the President personally and indicated that we need an extension. We will not finish our work by the end of October. He asked for an estimate, which we gave him. It had been prepared by the evidence leaders as to how long we would need. We've not yet had communicated to us to what date the further extension will be, but I am authorized by the department to say that we will be getting an extension. The full details of it will be announced later. We hope to be able to make an announcement around about the 14th when we resume. So the Commission will now adjourn until 9:30 on the 14th of October. Nothing more. And we will resume the proceedings then on that date at that time. The Commission will now adjourn.